Chapter 7. The first year of their marriage would have been stormy, except for Michael's placidity. It needed the excitement of getting apart or a first night, the gaiety of a party where he had drunk several glasses of champagne to turn his practical mind to thoughts of love. No flattery, no allurements could tempt him when he had an engagement next day for which he had to keep his brain clear, or a round of golf for which he needed a steady eye. Julia made him frantic scenes. She was jealous of his friends at the Green Room Club, jealous of the games that took him away from her, and jealous of the men's luncheons he went to under the pretext that he must cultivate people who might be useful to them. It infuriated her that when she worked herself up into a passion of tears, he could sit there quite calmly with his hands crossed and a good-humored smile on his handsome face, as though she were merely making herself ridiculous. "You don't think I'm running after any other women, do you?" he asked. "How do I know? It's quite obvious that you don't care two straws for me." "You know you're the only woman in the world for me." "My God." "I don't know what you want. I want love. I thought I'd marry the handsomest man in England, and I've married a tailor's dummy." "Don't be silly. I'm just the ordinary, normal Englishman. I'm not an Italian organ grinder." She swept up and down the room. They had a small flat at Buckingham Gate, and there was not much space, but she did her best. She threw up her hands to heaven. "I might be squint-eyed and humped-backed. I might be 50. Am I so unattractive as all that? It's so humiliating to have to beg for love. Misery, misery." "That was a good movement, dear. As if you were throwing cricket ball. Remember that." She gave him a look of scorn. "That's all you can think of. My heart is breaking, and you can talk of a movement that I made quite accidentally." But he saw by the expression of her face that she was registering it in her memory, and he knew that when the occasion arose, she would make effective use of it. "After all, love isn't everything. It's all very well at its proper time and in its proper place. We had a lot of fun on our honeymoon. That's what a honeymoon's for. But now we've got to get down to work." They had been lucky. They had managed to get fairly good parts together in a play that had proved a success. Julia had one good acting scene, in which she had brought down the house, and Michael's astonishing beauty had made a sensation. Michael, with his gentlemanly push, with his breezy good nature, had got them both a lot of publicity, and their photographs appeared in the illustrated papers. They were asked to a number of parties, and Michael, notwithstanding his thriftiness, did not hesitate to spend money on entertaining people who might be of service. Julia was impressed by his lavishness on these occasions. An actor-manager offered Julia the leading part in his next play, and though there was no part for Michael, and she was anxious to refuse it, he would not let her. He said they could not afford to let sentiment stand in the way of business. He eventually got a part in a costume play. They were both acting when the war broke out. To Julia's pride and anguish, Michael enlisted at once, but with the help of his father, one of whose older brother officers was an important personage at the War Office, he very soon got a commission. When he went out to France, Julia bitterly regretted the reproaches she had so often heaped upon him, and made up her mind that if he were killed, she would commit suicide. She wanted to become a nurse so that she could go out to France too, and at least be on the same soil as he, but he made her understand that patriotism demanded that she should go on acting, and she could not resist what might very well be his dying request. Michael thoroughly enjoyed the war. He was popular in the regimental mess, and the officers of the old army accepted him almost at once, even though he was an actor, as one of themselves. It was as though the family of soldiers from which he was born had set a seal on him, so that he fell instinctively into the manner and way of thinking of the professional soldier. He had tact and a pleasant manner, and he knew how to pull strings adroitly. It was inevitable that he should get on the staff of some general. He showed himself possessed of considerable organizing capacity, and the last 3 years of the war he passed at GHQ. He ended it as a major, with the Military Cross and the Legion of Honor. Meanwhile, Julia had been playing a succession of important parts, and was recognized as the best of the younger actresses. Throughout the war, the theater was very prosperous, and she profited by being seen in plays that had long runs. Salaries went up, and with Michael to advise her, she was able to extort £80 a week from reluctant managers. Michael came over to England on his leaves, and Julia was divinely happy. Though he was in no more danger than if he had been sheep farming in New Zealand, she acted as though the brief periods he spent with her were the last days the doomed man would ever enjoy on earth. She treated him as though he had just come from the horror of the trenches and was tender, considerate, and unexacting. It was just before the end of the war that she fell out of love with him.